Thank you very much, Rachel. Hi, everybody. As Rachel said, I'm Simon. I should put a bit of a disclaimer in front of everybody at the moment. I'm hugely biased that this is a problem that we're all facing. So much so, 5 years ago, I bet the farm on that this was going to be an issue, and co-founded Kubrick, and we exist purely to solve that, to help solve the global digital skills emergency that we see. So I should probably caveat this, that for the few that said they didn't think there was a problem, hopefully I can go in some way of convincing you that there is. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I believe that we're seeing is probably the largest challenge that is facing society and industry at the moment. And if we can just go on to the next slide. And COVID has done a lot to accelerate this pace of change that we're already witnessing. So this is from Microsoft, which was their predictions that in the wake of COVID, of where the gap would be around digital roles. In fact, one of the interesting things that sit underneath this is actually just in the UK alone, by 2025, they predict that there are going to be 4 million extra open positions just in data analytics, machine learning, and AI. And if you think we have a working population of around 33 million, for me, that was a huge challenge. As an entrepreneur, that was very, very attractive to be able to see if we could actually go some way of providing a solution to organizations and also society. Next slide, please. So what do we do? Well, we create the workforce that goes into a lot of industries. We're now the UK's largest graduate employer of data and machine learning roles. In fact, this year alone, or in the last 12 months, I should say, we've had over 50,000 applications, and we hire just over 1% of those. So probably that brings into sharp focus maybe some of the challenges that we face in terms of how we are selecting, and certainly this led us to do this piece of research work where we looked at where our normal hunting ground was for data. We looked at maths, physics, those type of environments, and actually we had to think outside the box, and we had to actually look at how do we solve this digital skill shortage. We've got to be able to look at other disciplines, and one of the terms we coined was being data aligned, because not only is it a problem being able to get the right people, but what we're also facing is there is a real diversity issue. And for those of you that run data teams or run technology teams, you will understand that diversity is a huge problem as well, not just gender, but also racial, culturally, neurodiversity. And data is one of these areas where, and certainly we look at it, is having a homogenous team and having actually affects the performance of your data team quite considerably, and it's diversity of thought and the different people that may be your customers or your patients within healthcare that is critical to get an understanding of what they want and actually asking different questions of that data. Next slide, please, Katie. So what we did was we reviewed a huge pool of graduates, and we looked at people coming from STEM, but not just STEM, but what we termed as data aligned, and we looked at being able to widen our net and expand our pipeline. And one of the things that I'm going to summarize with for everyone is basically three tactics I believe everyone can employ to be able to get a better pool of people coming into your business to fulfill these data roles. Next slide, please. So one of the things we immediately saw was actually, if you look at the top tier STEM universities and look at first and 2-1s, one of the interesting things is at GCSE level, you've got a real gender balance that's going on, and actually it's often called the leaky pipeline, and this is the start of it. And as A levels come on board, you can start seeing the reduction in female students, and that trend continues. And actually also going into actual workforce, the leaky pipeline continues. So we could see that was an acute problem facing us. Next slide, please. So what we looked at was, we actually looked at data aligned degrees, and we looked at what happens actually if we start widening that requirement and widening that net. So we looked at STEM with data line degrees first and 2-1, and in fact we were really amazed about what came through. Really, was suddenly we had a greater pool of female to male candidates. A really good small example of this, to go into to give you a bit of a case study, was we found that data engineering, one of our practices, in fact, biochemistry, we had some phenomenal performances of our data engineers, and it correlated very strongly that people that had a biochemistry degree, in fact, not only did you get a greater proportion of females within that degree subject, but also they made absolutely cracking data engineers. So this is a tool that we're now using across our business to ensure that not only can we drive diversity within the business, but also we can make sure that we have the numbers coming in that we clearly require. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that we looked at was actually how open were our clients to upskilling, because one of the things that we've got to also make sure of, if you take our very first data engineering practice, which was back at the back end of 2016, beginning of 2017, if you now compare what they learned in that very first data engineering cohort to now, they are probably, there's probably only 15–20% similarity in technology. I mean, back then it was all about Hadoop and Cloudera and things like that. And now it's very much on the actual cloud providers. So it's very important, it's critical that people are able to put time aside when they're working to invest in upskilling. And actually, as an employer, a lot of employees are looking for that, because they understand that the market, they understand that next generational technology is constantly changing at a pace that we're not used to. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry,
Wonderful.
thank you. Carried away.
That's all right.
So
Simon,
I'd just end, Rachel. My three messages would be that one of the things that I've seen is the unfillable role. So it's a real phenomenon going around, I think, and it's very damaging for organizations. So the unfillable role is when someone says, I need someone with 5 years experience that has this type of technology and this type of technology, and they've got to be with this background. If you look at the acceleration of the market and the pull on the candidate pool and the growth, and if you look at the Microsoft facts that there's going to be 4 million new roles, that just isn't possible. So we are seeing clients actually damaging their business because there is this kind of unfillable role that gets a life of itself, and certain line managers, I think feel quite a bit sense of pride on this. So I would be very aware of the unfillable roles and actually look at being able to take people that might have the technical expertise or at least the willingness, and give it, and then that follows into putting time aside to prioritize their training so they are able to fulfill the unfillable role, which is never unfillable. And then finally, I would also say that, throw the net wide with either your HR departments or your own recruitment practices, and think about what backgrounds people might have that align themselves very, very neatly to the roles that you're looking for. Thanks.
Thank you, Simon. And I have had one question through here, which I think is quite interesting. How do we look differently? And it does relate to that question about 5 years experience. How do we look differently at describing who might be the right person for these new roles? How do we, sort of describe the attributes?
Yeah, it's something that Kubrick Group we constantly look at. So I think what it comes down to is and it's quite hard to be tangible about this, but I'm a true believer of attitude and passion is probably my go-to first. We've got a hugely industrious graduate pool and now apprenticeships, and I think you can see the hunger and passion. So that would be my first one. The other one would be do they understand either next generational technology or where we specialize in? Do they understand data? Do they understand the power of it, the concept? I'm not asking them to be a Python coder. That stuff you can teach, but it's all about the foundation that you're looking for. So high degrees of passion, understanding what the possibility of data can do, a logical problem-solving mindset.
And also, do you think we need to intervene right away across the leaky pipeline? Because I certainly know from Dame Wendy Hall's work around STEM and inclusiveness that the leaky pipeline is a problem. But I just wondered how far Kubrick get involved in that to maintain our talent and keep them on track for the careers that potentially they will be useful for.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, it starts so early on, and I understand that when you're employing people, that's all very well and good, but I suppose the parents in the audience that may have daughters, I'm one of them. It starts with us saying the message, and you go all the way through, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. Kubrick are in a fortunate position that you don't need to have the knowledge, so we can bring people in, but we've got to battle, we've really got to prove that this is something that, and talking about gender on this one, that actually a female graduate of biochemistry is an example I use. They can actually see themselves in this role, and that actually they have confidence that they're going to bring something to this, and they feel comfort that that is an environment where their skill set is really needed. So I think it's actually a bit of it's a PR exercise as much as anything else, and it's down to an organization. It's making them look like an attractive employer for those type of individuals.
And that's really pertinent to me because I studied genomics and biochemistry, so I made that but also well, yes, I do love working with data, but very interestingly, I followed script. My mum was a programmer DBA, and I had a professor of computing who was female in the family. So it's very interesting because I just followed script, but I'm very aware that other people who didn't have that right next to them, it's unless you see one, you can't become one, which is very interesting. And that's the work that Dame Wendy Hall's done and has highlighted that we need more role models and more awareness. So thank you so much for that, Simon. Please continue to put into the chat or use Twitter to send me any questions you've got.